Hello and welcome back to The Movies Made Us Do It. Me and Matt are back. How are you, Matt?
I'm pretty good, sir. How are you?
I am, I'm very well. Very well. It's going to probably be Christmas week by the time this one goes out.
Yeah.
So I hope everyone's feeling festive. We are, certainly, as of this recording, we are still planning on doing a Christmas special, which will be out on Christmas Eve.
Yeah.
But we'll talk about that later. For now, let's talk about what we've been watching. What have you been watching, Matt? What have you been watching?
I guess I'll start with probably the most un-Christmassy movie that I've got. Oh no, actually, having said that,
There's a couple in your list.
One of the others is not Christmassy either. So let's start with the Unforgivable.
That was the one I assumed you were going for, but there was competition there.
Yeah.
So the
Unforgivable
Unforgivable
came out on Netflix this week, I believe.
I have not watched it yet, but I will say the trailer looks amazing.
Yes. We've got it was directed by Norrell Fingshet, and it is based on a British TV show miniseries from 2009, I think it was, by Sally Wainwright, and that starred Saran Jones. And I've got a feeling I did watch that. I'm pretty sure I watched it when it came out, and that was a while. So it stars Sandra Bullock. It's got Vincent D'Onofrio, Viola Davis, John Bernthal, Richard Thomas, Linda Emmond, and it's basically it starts off with Sandra Bullock's character Ruth, who is just been released from jail.
Yeah.
On good behaviour, so she's been released early, but you discover that she killed a policeman.
That's why she was in jail in the first place.
Yeah, so she was basically serving a 20-year sentence for killing a policeman, and from the start, everybody's basically against her. Her even her parole officer clearly doesn't like her very much.
Right.
For all intents and purposes, she's a cop killer.
Sure.
The police are not gonna be terribly upset if something horrible happens.
Yeah, I wouldn't call them if something goes wrong. Yeah.
So she gets taken to her halfway house where she's got sort of day. She gets told she's going to go. She's learned carpentry while she's been in, but when she gets, she's got a job working as a carpenter. But when she gets to the site, they basically someone obviously said that who she is, and there's no job for her, so she ends up working in a fish factory. And you discover that she has a little sister who she hasn't seen or spoken to for the years that she's been. I think it's 17 years that she's been in for.
Right, so she didn't visit or anything.
Yeah. No, and the sister was very small. She was only 5 when.
Oh, okay.
She went in. So this is one of the things that it's. I will say that a problem with Sandra Bullock's character is that Sandra Bullock is in her 50s. I believe she.
Yeah, she must be somewhere around there at this point.
Yeah, so she is. She's not a young woman, and it feels like that there's too much of a gap between her.
Okay, a bit too much of a disparity between the. Yeah.
But I think it's a kind of a minor thing because it's Sandra Bullock and she's acting her ass off.
Yes.
But
and still looks incredible for her age anyway. But
she does. She really does. I mean, and she does. She looks rough as fuck in this as well. And she's this is not a glamorous role.
No.
So she wants to talk. She wants to get in contact with this little sister, but due to her, her case and that, she's not allowed to. She's not supposed to. Of the usual things, she's not supposed to talk to felons. She's not supposed to, associate with anybody from her past. So all that sort of stuff. So she decides that she wants to see her old house. So through flashbacks, you get the impression that she lived in this farm with her father and her little sister, and the father, I believe, committed suicide and left the two girls in this house, which is being repossessed.
Sandra Bullock is 57, by the way.
Yes, I thought she was.
So it's quite a gap there.
Yeah. So, obviously, these people turn up to that house to repossess it,
mm-hmm.
and at some point, she killed this policeman
sure.
who came in. She goes to the house where she used to live, and living in that house now is Vincent D'Onofrio's character, who is a lawyer, and he's married to Viola Davis, and he's like the nicest, most trusting guy, because he basically, like, Viola Davis sees her in the garden, in sort of the yard, and she's like, there's some woman in our yard, and he sort of goes out, and he's just sort of like, I mean, admittedly, I wouldn't mess with Vincent D'Onofrio.
No, I wouldn't fuck with him.
But however, she could be a psycho. Even D'Onofrio can only fight off so much crazy.
Sure. Yeah.
And he said he's kind to her, and she says that she did some work there. She put up some sort of things and stuff, and he says, there was this, I think it's like an armoire or something, and she says, oh yeah, I did, I put that, I made that. So he says, oh, why don't you come and have a look round and see what we've done with the place? And you think, wow, this dude is like really fucking trusting. He's going to take this woman he doesn't know into his house. Beforehand, they were doing some work in the kitchen, and they found there was a pair of shoes behind one of the walls, which was one of those things that people did for luck and things when they built houses.
Yeah. And
when they mention the shoes, she immediately looks to where the shoes were in the wall. So they
realise she has clearly been here before. Yeah.
Yeah. And he takes her to the bus station and stuff, and she, he says, look, I know you're lying about certain things, and she says, yeah, she doesn't tell the complete truth, but she tells enough of the truth. And he says, look, he says, I can probably help you out. I am a lawyer. He says, I don't really do that. What, your case stuff is, but I can look into it for you.
Yeah.
And she meets John Berthel, who's working at the fish factory, and she gets a second job as a carpenter working in this sort of it's like a hall which they're going to be converted into a centre for the homeless.
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, the sister, she is at college, and she plays piano, and she was adopted by Richard Thomas's character and Linda Emmons' character, and they are loving parents. They've got there's a younger daughter which is theirs, and their daughter has flashbacks to, she knows something terrible happened. Right. She knows there was a woman there that sort of loved her and stuff. She gets feelings for this one, but she doesn't remember enough. She knows that something happened, and it's beginning to affect her, her playing. And she has an accident. She's driving. I think she's driving home, or she's driving to college or something, and she sort of blanks out, and she's in a crash.
Right.
And basically, I'm not going to say anything else because
no, that's fair. Yeah.
Stuff in this movie. This is a really fucking good movie. Sandra Bullock is absolutely amazing. She is,
as you come to expect from Sandra Bullock. She's incredible.
It's one of her finest dramatic roles.
Wow.
She is this.
Yeah,
it really is. I've heard people complain that she has one expression for the whole movie. It's like, well, yes, but
her life is kind of shattered, right?
Her life isn't. And there's one thing, two things I did. One thing I did miss out, which I will actually say, is, while this is all going on, there are two brothers, Steve and I think it's Ken, Now these are the sons of the copper that she killed, and the older brother is like, she needs to be punished. She walked away early. There's no, we were left without a father. She killed our father. We need to do something. So while this is going on, there's also them, these two brothers that are sort of following her around, and they're finding out what it is, and they're planning on doing something to her. All of the fucking performances are fantastic. D'Onofrio, not a big part, but he's brilliant. Viola Davis is brilliant in a small part as well. John Bernthal, again, small part, fucking brilliant. It's an amazing cast, but it's mostly hinged on Sandra Bullock in this amazing dramatic role of a completely damaged woman, who's been locked away for 17 years and is just surviving, on the coming out and basically everything is against her, and look, that's not saying that she deserves a certain amount of forgiveness, because she killed a policeman, so but I think there's enough, anybody with enough empathy will feel for her character,
and there is an element of there is a, not that we want to get into that on this podcast, but there is a system in place, and someone has done their time. They've paid their penance, and they have a right to then continue their life. Really, there's some lovely there's a really great scene towards the end, which has got the sister playing, I think it's a Radiohead song, on the piano while something is happening, and it's really lovely. It's really well done. The direction is great. For a dour movie, it looks lovely. It's just brilliant. Sandra Bullock is a really amazing, I think, and it's a really. I'm not. It's not a happy movie. I will say that it can be a little hard going. I can tell you, Matt, that both of the movies I've watched are not happy movies either. So you're actually bringing all the happy today later on. So
yeah, but yeah, I can't praise this enough. I think it's a fantastic Sandra Bullock movie. If you're a bit. If you're on a downer at the moment, maybe not.
Depends how you feel.
If you want to see a thoroughly amazing Sandra Bullock movie, then I would highly recommend this. It's great.
In a weird way, when I'm feeling really down, I kind of like to watch movies like that, because for me, I'm like, I can watch a movie and just, I'll watch Threads if I'm really depressed, and I'll just be like, well, their life is shitter than mine. It's like, by comparison, I'm doing all right.
Isn't it? I mean, it's.
But this is a movie I must admit was high on my list, and if I hadn't seen what I saw available yesterday, which I'll get to in a bit, I would have watched this, and I plan to watch it. I probably will watch it tonight now, because I'm a big Sandra Bullock fan, and I must admit the trailer is tremendous.
It's a great trailer. It's completely hooked me in.
And you've sold me on it, so
it's great. It's really, really good, and I think it is a highly satisfying movie. It's just full of tremendous performances. Really great movie.
Well, from one great set of performances to another. So I was looking. I watched two films. I watched one, and then I was like, I could do with seeing another. I always find, I don't know why, but for this show, I always feel like I need at least two movies. That's like my minimum. It's like it should always be two if I can do that. Two or more.
Mine's usually 4.
Yeah, you usually bring a lot more, but I always feel bad if I haven't at least watched 2. So, I'd watched Encounter, which I'll get to a little later, and I was looking for another movie, and I didn't realize that this was available until last night, and then I saw it, and I was like, "Ooh, the only option was to buy it." So I was like, "I'm going to buy it, and I'll take the risk because I'm pretty sure it's going to be good." So I bought Antlers.
Oh, nice.
Yes, and I put it, it's digital, so I bought it digitally, and because I was pretty sure I was going to like it. I loved the trailer, and I thought this is
Yeah, the trailer was great,
this
and
looks
it's
great.
been like brewing for ages, hasn't it?
Well,
this
I was
movie?
ready to watch it in 2019, right? And then the
Yeah.
pandemic happened, and or was it April? I think it was like April 2020. It was going to come out or something.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's been delayed countless times because of COVID. So I've been really excited to watch Antlers for a long time. So I saw it and I put the digital version on, and I was like, Jesus Christ, this film's longer than Dune. It's like almost 3 hours long. And then I realized that there's a load of bonus stuff. But I guess when you order, when you get the digital version, you don't get it as a separate thing. It's just at the end of the movie. So it just made the whole movie look ridiculously long. And then when it was getting to like the sort of 2 hour mark, I was like, this seems to be wrapping up. There can't be another hour of this. And there wasn't. It's bonus footage that I haven't seen yet. But so Antlers is a horror movie directed by Scott Cooper. And quite nicely, it's based on a short story. I think is a short story written by C. Henry Chasen. And what I really like is that they got him involved in making this film. So they were like, hey, this is a great short story. We want to expand it to be a film. Please come on board and help write the screenplay with us. You know, that's always nice to see.
Usually a good thing, yeah.
You don't normally see that, and I thought that was worth pointing out. But
just looking up Scott Cooper, he's
done a lot.
Bloody great credits.
He's done a lot.
Great Out of the Furnace, Hostiles, Black Mass. Even I actually quite like Black Mass, but yeah,
I enjoyed Black Mass. Yeah,
Hostiles and Crazy Heart were amazing movies.
So, Del Toro, you probably think this movie was directed by Del Toro because that was all over the marketing, but I think he just produced it. So it's
so I always think that's one of those double-edged swords, isn't it? It's nice. I like it when they got presented by or
sure,
because it usually you think, okay, well it means that they've seen it and they like it. Hopefully,
yeah.
I know it used to be when somebody used to say, "Oh, Stephen King loves this movie," and you think Stephen King probably.
Stephen King. If you see executive producer, that's when you know they've had nothing. They've had nothing to do with it. They financed it a bit.
And I think this, it's usually a problem when somebody says, "Oh, this was directed by that person." You think, no, it wasn't. Because it's like, I think, is it The Orphanage? That was...
Yeah, that was another one that was like...
think that was directed by...
Del Toro.
Not everybody, obviously, but yeah, and it's... Yeah, so it's always one of those sort of, double-edged swords, isn't it?
It really is, yeah. But anyway, Antlers is... basically, it's set in a small town in Oregon, and the movie opens at an abandoned mine. And we learn that Frank Weaver is running a meth lab out of this abandoned mine, and his young son is waiting in the truck. Basically, he's like pulled up there to get some stuff from the meth lab or do some work, and his young son Aiden is basically waiting for him. And Aiden hears some strange noise, and it kind of scares him, and he kind of he starts to run off, and then his dad kind of calls him over. He's like, "What are you doing? Like, I told you to stay in this truck." And he said, I heard some weird noise. And he's like, "Oh, well, that's just me and his partner, who is like unnamed partner." He's like, we're just working. It's just work. Don't worry. Just stay in the car and we'll call you." And in any case, down in the meth lab, Frank and his partner are attacked by an unseen creature. They kind of hear the noise and they're then attacked by the creature. But Frank survives and Aiden survives. Aiden's also attacked, and they return home. But their condition starts to get worse and worse. And the movie then picks up 3 weeks later with a young boy called Lucas, who basically is like an outcast. He's the quiet kid in school. He doesn't talk to anyone. He's bullied. Spends most of his time just kind of roaming around town. And Lucas's teacher, Julia, becomes very concerned for Lucas based on the drawings he's made and the stories he's telling. Sorry?
Played by Kerry Russell, yeah?
Yeah, wonderfully by Kerry Russell. She's fantastic. She's concerned because she sees his drawings and they have a story time, and he tells a story which is like quite dark, and it's actually he's basically telling the truth of what's going on, but like in a kind of artistic way. And so she's concerned, and she has a history of abuse. She was abused as a child at the hands of her father, who was an alcoholic and presumably mentally ill. He's recently committed suicide, so she's now come back to town, and she's living with her brother, who's the local sheriff. Right. And she feels she's guilty towards the sheriff, her brother, because she left him, basically. She couldn't take the abuse, so she left. She ran away. And it's only now that her father's killed himself that she's come back, and she feels guilty for leaving Lucas with this abusive man all of this time, effectively. But she sees Lucas, this child, who seems upset and disturbed, and she's convinced that because of her own experience with childhood abuse, her and her brother Paul, she feels that it's probably the same for him. He's being abused. So she starts trying to investigate the kid. She tries talking to him, and he's not really interested in talking. And eventually that kind of leads her to head to the home, and try and investigate, what's going on. And she asks about town, about Frank. And nobody's really talked to him for a while, and they always knew him as a shady guy. Obviously, he was running a meth lab out of an abandoned mine, so he was a bit shady to begin with. Basically, the story kind of goes from there. And I don't even know if it's a spoiler because it's in the trailer. But effectively, what we have here is the Wendigo. It's the story of the Wendigo, which is a person who I think it's something like he is a person who started. Who became angry and furious, and then started eating flesh, and then had like an insatiable appetite for flesh, and became this creature called the Wendigo. Now, they kind of change it a little to where it's not a creature. It's not just this creature called the Wendigo, and that's it. In this movie, and this may be in the mythology, I don't really know, but in this movie, the idea is that the Wendigo is like it's a almost demonic presence that can inhabit a body and then move from body to body. Mm-hmm. So when Frank was attacked, he was infected as such by the Wendigo, and he basically becomes the Wendigo over time. And obviously Aidan, Lucas's younger brother, is obviously next on that list as well. Basically we kind of follow the teacher, Julia, as she tries to investigate, and then obviously comes to the truth. And we get to see Lucas, who basically spends most of the start of the movie feeding his dad roadkill, effectively, his dad and his brother. He's basically trying to look after his brother. It's very Lovecraftian in that way. I'm trying to think of the book. It might be Call of Cthulhu, actually, where they're keeping someone alive who's locked in a room. It's basically like that.
No, is that the name of it?
No, it might be Innsmouth, actually.
I know. Yeah, I know the one you mean.
But so he kind of has that feel where he's trying to feed his father and his brother, roadkill or small animals, and he's cutting them up and whatnot. And he obviously feels completely lost, but he's trying to kind of keep his dad happy, and he feels like, he's a child. He feels like, my dad's going to be happy if I feed him. He'll be okay. He won't be, and obviously you're probably getting the theme of this movie, which is abuse. It's the theme is very heavy on abuse, both Julia's abuse and Lucas's abuse from his father. Although his father, you do have a scene where his father he's trying to protect his kids. He locks himself up, basically. He's like, I'm losing my mind. Like, you lock this and you don't open it, and whatever. But Lucas is determined to look after him. So I genuinely loved this movie. I thought this was a really, really well made movie. I think a few of the themes fall a little flat. But for the most part, I thought this was a wonderful film. The practical effects are stunning.
Oh, good.
The CGI, for the most part, is stunning. Sometimes there are a couple of awkward shots, but the way in which the creature exists as a practical effect, and even when it's CG, it's still done very well. And the way that the the characters react to the creature is very real. The sound is amazing. Like, there's some really nice, if I imagine if you watch the movie with headphones, the sound in this movie is incredible as well. The sound of the creature and everything like that is amazing. I genuinely thought it was a wonderful film with a wonderful cast.
Jesse Plemons and Graham Greene.
Now, the kid Jesse Plemons, he plays the brother Paul, and he's fantastic in that as well. There's a wonderful scene between him and Kerry Russell, where she says, he our father abused me. Like I had to leave. Like I was dealing with this all the time. Like, you wouldn't know what I had to deal with, and Jesse's like, you have no idea what you did to me. Like you literally have no idea. And obviously Paul is the one that had to live with it all those years after she ran away as well. It's tremendously well acted, but I think in particular, and I'm trying to find his name, the child actor in this who plays Lucas is amazing.
Jeremy T. Thomas.
Yes, if he decides to continue acting, he could be onto some amazing things. Because his performance in this film is absolutely amazing. And presumably he was like, I don't know, 10, 11 at this point, 12 maybe. Incredible performance. Absolutely incredible. I don't want to obviously give too much away in terms of the story beyond that. I think what I've talked about is pretty much in the trailer, so I don't think I've spoiled anything there.
Yeah. No, that trailer was amazing. I've been waiting to watch this myself.
Well, this was why when I saw it to buy, I was like, do you know what? I'll just take the plunge because... I'm a big fan.
Sometimes you just got to, aren't you?
Yeah, well, Scott Cooper, good.
Yeah.
Good director. I love the trailer. I was like, I think I'm going to be happy with this. I'll give it a go. And I was not disappointed. I really, really enjoyed this movie. I think some of the practical effects are amazing, to the point of being quite disturbing in places.
Good.
Yeah, it's quite nasty in places. But I will say it is almost a study of abuse or at least a commentary on abuse. So there are some very horrific scenes in this movie, and there is a monster, there is a creature, and we do get to see all of that good stuff. But that's not all the movie's about. So if you're expecting constant horror and gore, there's a bit more of a story going on here as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, honestly, can't recommend this one enough. I'm really glad because I've been looking forward to this film since the first trailer came out many years ago now, a couple of years ago now.
Yes, I think it said it was finished in 2018, so...
And I was really worried that it wouldn't live up to, that much time looking forward to something. When you finally get it, you're like, oh, will it be as good as I hope? But yeah, it really was. For me, I can't recommend Antlers enough.
Sweet.
So, what do you want to talk about next, Matt? Do you want to do a Christmas movie, or do you want to continue with your... non-Christmas?
Let's do one of the Christmas movies.
All right.
Let's do Love Hard.
Yes. Now I'm assuming they called it that for the obvious reason.
Yes. Well, I'll. So, this movie is directed by Hernan Jimenez. Sorry if I'm.
That's okay. You did your best.
And it stars Nina Dobrev, Jimmy O Yang, Darren Barnett, James Chateau, Rebecca Staab, and it's about Natalie, who is a journalist. She works for a paper where she does this column where she dates people, and it's her terrible dating life, basically. So she does the old app dating stuff, and it's awful. And she finally gets her friend says to her, well, you have to broaden your, you're basically you're in LA, and your search is only for the 10-mile radius or something. Mm-hmm. So in LA you're just gonna get douchebags. So she says you need to widen up. So she takes her phone and she widens it to the whole of America.
Okay.
And she gets this ping from where is it? It's what is it? It's one of those near New York, I think. bloody find it. Anyway, it's fucking like across the country anyway. So she gets this, and it's this kid called Josh, and he's incredibly handsome, and he likes all the things that she kind of likes. So she starts talking to this guy, and they sort of have these like it's like sort of pillow talk, or the Doris Day movie, or Trees About Cats and Dogs. You know that movie?
Yep. So
they basically start this friendship over the phone. So they're talking to each other, and they're watching movies together over the phone, and they fall asleep together over the phone, and all that sort of stuff. And basically, they discover that her favorite Christmas movie is Die Hard, and his favorite movie is Love Actually.
I see.
Hence, Love Hard. And he, during one of these, she wakes up sort of thing, and the phone's been on all evening while they've been asleep, and she said, and he says, oh, I wish I could see you for Christmas, sort of thing. So she goes and talks to her friend, and her friend says, do it, go.
Why not?
Go. So she says, sod it, I'm going to do it. Her boss, meanwhile, is saying to her, where's my, if you can't have a good date because we want to hear about your disasters.
Yeah, like yeah.
So, but she says, no, I'm going to go and see this guy. So she gets on a plane. She goes all the way over to what the bloody hell it is. I'm completely blanking on what the hell it is. It's really annoying. It's one of those places that you from movies and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And then she gets murdered.
And then she gets horribly murdered. No, she does not get horribly murdered. She does discover, however, she goes to the house and she discovers that she's been catfished, in that this handsome guy is not the handsome guy that she thinks. It's the nerdy looking Josh, played by Jimmy O Yang.
But don't worry, folks, because he's only Hollywood ugly. He's still clearly a very handsome man.
Yeah, he is. She's all that ugly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So he lives in it. He's living in his parents' basement, and his parents they're lovely. Actually, they live with grandma and stuff, and they discovered that the guy that he was pretending to be actually is a real guy that lives in his town. He knows him. They used to be best friends when they were little, and he was basically just using his, he knows all about him, and he was just using him. So they come up with this plan. She agrees to be his girlfriend if he sets her up with Tag, who is this bit of a do-bro, loves mountain climbing and all that stuff. All shit that she does. She gets a bloody nose from climbing stairs. She doesn't do any of the climbing or go on long walks and all that sort of stuff. And he's all for that sort of stuff. I mean, the literature he loves. I can't remember who it is, but there's the guy that is his favorite book, and she can't stand this book, and she thinks that the guy who wrote it is an asshole.
Right.
But she pretends, for the sake of it. And you also get this Josh's older brother, Owen, who is the biggest dickhead. He's a sort of, hogs all the limelight and, does nothing but belittle his little brother. And of course, she helps with all that. And obviously you get your usual holiday tropes, and it's a Christmas movie.
Yeah, well, that's what you want, though. Like, Christmas movies are like comfort food,
Exactly. So it's not the best Christmas movie you're ever going to see, but it's actually quite good. I really enjoyed it.
Nothing's going to be better than Muppets Christmas Carol, is it?
No, Christ, no, never.
It's just like the bar that's never going to be raised.
Or Die Hard.
Die Hard. Yeah.
So obviously, the whole Die Hard a Christmas movie comes up all the time, which is funny because we have this conversation all the time. and like I said, it's there are some almost some toe curling cringy moments. There's actually there's a scene where they're in a bar and she's decided that she's going to go and impress this tag guy by not singing the Christmas karaoke that everybody else is singing, but singing "I Will Do Anything for Love."
Okay.
While I don't want to spoil it, but let's just say something happens which is rather unfortunate, and it is very cringy, but it is also quite funny. So
all right.
I actually completely approve of this one. I think it's really funny. There's the Nina Dobrev, the main girl. I think she was in like the Vampire Diaries and stuff like that, which don't hold that against her.
But hey, there were a lot of good actors and actresses in that show.
That's very true.
It's not. I don't like the show, but
I managed to watch the first season before I was like, yeah, no, I'm done.
Yeah, I think I only watched a couple of episodes, if I'm honest. But I have seen over the years there's been a lot of good talent in that show.
Yeah, so, that's very true. Jimmy O Yang is really funny as Josh. They're the two main they hold it up. Pretty well. I think they're pretty believable as a sort of people that are obviously suited because they like similar things. They've spent nights talking to each other, so they kind you feel the sort of the thing moving towards them, and it's like I said, it's the usual Christmas tropes, but I really enjoyed it. You could do much worse than this as a Christmas movie. It's heartwarming, it's enjoyable, and genuinely funny.
Well, we'll find out if you did worse with Christmas movies in a little while.
Yeah,
because this ain't the only one this year. But that's good. That's good to hear. It looked like a lot of fun, I must admit. And like you said, you kind of there are those tropes with the Hallmark Christmas movie moments, and you kind of want those. It's kind of what you want from a Christmas movie.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. Yeah, and there's a certain amount of disbelief and stuff that you suspend for Christmas movies.
We always say that it's amazing how much higher your tolerance is for bad films when they're Christmas movies. You're like, oh, but it's a Christmas movie, it's fine, But this one sounds like it's genuinely good fun.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've even watched some terrible like Hallmark movies, which are just it's the same story every time.
It is like literally those memes, those funny memes that people or videos that people do when they like talk about every Hallmark movie ever. They are right. Like they are right. They're genuinely right.
I mean, I don't know how many Christmas movies I've seen. Lacey Chabot just seems to do Christmas movies these days.
There are some actors and actresses that just do that. They're like Slade or Wizard for movies. It's like they just come out every Christmas. It's like okay, I guess what's her name? Oh, I forget her name. The woman who played Sabrina the Teenage Witch.
I was just gonna say Melissa Joan Hart.
She has got like 50 Christmas movies to her credit or something now. It's insane.
I love Melissa Joan Hart.
She's great. She's great, but it is funny. She does seem to have very much fallen into the Christmas Christmas trap. If it's a trap, I don't know, but she does do a lot of them.
I'm guessing it's paying work, isn't it?
It's paying work, and I love a good Christmas movie. Like, I don't mind how cheesy a Christmas movie is. That's the point for me at Christmas.
Yeah.
I want to see some cheese. We watched last year. We watched a couple. We watched the Christmas Planner was the one that I thoroughly enjoyed last year.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that.
It's the David Hasselhoff one.
Oh God, yes, I have seen that.
Yeah. And it's like, it's awful. It's an awful movie, but it's just heartwarming and fun. And because it's Christmas, you're like, oh, it's fine, whatever. It's good fun. But anyway, I haven't got anything fun to talk about today. It's all depressing stuff for me because that's all I watched last night. So I watched The Encounter. Directed by Michael Pearce and starring Riz Ahmed, quickly becoming one of my favorite actors. So I don't know if you've seen the trailer, you'll probably know, but the film effectively begins as a U.S. Marine, Malik Khan, basically has come home to rescue his 2 children, and effectively their mother has been feeling sick lately, and he returns home and takes the kids away, basically telling them she's got a bug, and he then says, hey, we're going on a road trip. We're going on an urgent road trip. He just kind of appears and wakes the sons up, and he's like, we're going on a road trip. We gotta go. And as he continues, we're basically told by him that an alien invasion is taking place, but it's kind of under the radar. It's very much an invasion of the body snatchers type invasion. It's parasitic. It's like parasitic organisms, and the movie does the opening of the movie is amazing. The direction in this film, a lot of the direction in this film is fantastic. We get to see a lot of bugs and creatures, and anytime he sees bugs or creatures, he's like, oh god, it could be the aliens. So basically he's convinced that this is the case, and we're shown that this is the case. There's a police stop that happens.
Yeah, I think that's in the trailer, isn't it? I think something in his eye.
Yes, it is, and you can see the organism in his eye. And that ends in basically him knocking the cop out in that situation, and they flee. So if you don't want spoilers for this movie, there's no way I can talk about this movie without doing spoilers, because I can only talk about 20% of the film if I don't do spoilers. So you might want to skip ahead by like 5 minutes. But effectively, this film is a bait and switch. It's misleading from its trailer. But I'm not sure that's a bad thing, because I still think the movie we have is very good. I just think that people going into this movie might want something else and get something different. They may not be happy about it. Now, I was expecting something.
To be fair, I did think that from the trailer. I thought
it's hinted at. It is hinted at, and I was like, okay, maybe, maybe that will be the case. I'm not sure. But I went in kind of open-minded, and I had a lot of fun watching this movie anyway. I think it's a pretty well-made movie, but it does very much it almost holds your hand in pulling you into this is what's going on, to then pull the rug out from under you and say this is not what's going on, and it's all in Malik's head. But it's kind of instead of it being like, oh, that's quite clever. I can see how he misunderstood this situation, or like he's misread that situation and thought it's one thing when it's actually another. This movie flat out shows you like, hey, look, that guy's got alien things in his eyes and it's clearly aliens. And then later on it's like, oh no, that was just in his head. So it leaves very little to, misunderstanding or miscommunication. It's very much the movie's made you think it's one way and then takes you in another, which is fine. What we're dealing with ultimately is a Marine with some mental health issues as a result of some of the hideous things he's seen. And in one point we do see here one of his platoon or war buddies who says, there was this time we were just stuck in this hole getting bombed and we were covered in bugs, and the bugs were just relentlessly biting us, and all of this, and you can see where he's come from. But basically he's taken his kids on this road trip because he believes that there's an alien invasion taking place, and in true mental illness fashion, it's an invasion that requires very little proof, and he doesn't need to prove it. In his mind it's true, but he can't really show anyone because they're microscopic or parasitic little organisms. We're taken along for the ride, and we see his 2 young boys, Jay and Bobby, again, second movie this week, incredible child actors, doing a fantastic job. And it really strikes me watching this movie that not only are they great child actors, but they're actually acting their age, which is very rare for a movie. Yeah, I often find like the writing is like, kids wouldn't act like this. Like they're not acting like kids would act, Whereas watching this movie, I was like, no, they're acting exactly like you would expect kids to act at this age. I think
their age. We've said for a number of years now that I think the quality
kid actors
of
are getting better.
It's got a lot better.
We have said that, and it's true.
Like the 80s or the 90s.
I can't think of the last time I said there was a child actor who was awful. It doesn't seem to happen anymore. Child actors are definitely getting better.
I'm sure there is. I'm sure there have been cases.
When
but
when I go back and watch one of my favorite films of all time, Son of Frankenstein.
Oh God,
fucking kid in that is like laughably bad. And you think, yeah, we've come a long way. Come a long way.
I mean, the 80s was full of terrible kid actors.
It was, yeah. And I mean, yeah, going back to the 40s is probably a bit extreme, but yeah, yeah, there were a lot. But these days they seem a lot better, and these kids are fantastic as well. So I think if you're willing to go with this movie and accept the bait and switch, as it were, or not even bait and switch, but the subversion of expectations and the subversion of the idea, it's got a twist, but the twist happens very early on. That's, I think, the weirdest thing. It's like
I think there's a difference between this movie and the one that I reviewed a couple of weeks ago, which was the one I forget what it was bloody called now, but it was one of the Amazon horror movies.
Oh yeah,
where it wasn't a horror movie at all. It was really an actual, it was about the plight of Mexican.
Oh yes, you said it was a good movie, but again misleading.
Being sterilized.
Yeah,
and it was, the sort of the ghost stuff was completely incidental. It wasn't about that at all. That was a I think much more hard to deal with bait and switch than this is, because I think at least this one, I think if you see the trailer, I think you can get the feeling that it's probably
the
not.
hints are there, and and
so
the other thing is,
but I'm sure there still will be people that will fall for it and will be disappointed.
Well, and the other thing is that the story you're left with is still a very good story.
Yeah,
we've switched from one story to another, but the story is still very good.
Yeah, that was the problem with that other movie. I think there was still a good story there, but what it should have been was a documentary about these the Mexican farmers and things. But it is what it is. But this I mean, I did like the look of it, and as you said, Riz Ahmed is
he's tremendous. He's like, anytime I see him in a film, even if it's a film I don't particularly like, I think his performances. He can do so much acting with his eyes and his face. Like, his eyes, he just looks like he's got so much emotion behind his eyes. He's so intense in some scenes. With very little. It's like a masterclass in acting without saying anything. The guy doesn't need to even speak, and he can communicate so much. He's very quickly becoming one of my favorite. He's one of those people that I'm like, if I see him in a movie, I'm like, he'll be great in that movie.
Yeah, that is definitely. I think his politics.
I can't. If I get involved in celebrities' politics, I won't like any of them. So
exactly,
we'll just leave that where it is.
But his performances are usually amazing. The Sound of Metal, was it?
Oh, he was great in that. Yeah.
I mean, I'm not sure. I didn't completely agree with a lot of the stuff that was in that movie, but his performance was stunning.
Well, I mean, you had or your good wife had a greater knowledge of those devices. I had no idea. So to me, as a layman, I was like, "This is great," and then you were like, "Actually, scientifically, this is bollocks." I was like, "Okay, fair enough." But
I think it was. I think it just had the wrong. It had a certain slant to it that I didn't completely agree with. But his performances,
amazing again,
fucking amazing. He was tremendous,
and similarly he is amazing here. I would say I think the story overall is good. I think it does introduce more characters later who are all fantastic.
I mean, Octavia Spencer's usually fantastic. I don't think I've seen her in a bad role.
No, she's wonderful. She's really good in this. And again,
it's got the angel dude from Misha Collins from
Misha Collins, yes,
Supernatural.
From Supernatural. How to Ruin a Good Character by continuing. That show just do you know, I still, as an aside, if that show had finished in season 5 as it was meant to, that would be one of my favorite series of all time. I loved that show, and they ran it into the ground.
They had the views, they were still making money. So I
know, but the problem is,
good for them, right? I mean,
I guess the problem for me is, like, you know,
if you how much this was such a great show that they just
they just ran it into the ground. Just end it when it was meant to end. But anyway, that aside, so tremendously acted. I will say the only kind of criticism I really have here is that I do feel like in many ways it feels a little like there's 3 stories being told at once and they're 3 separate movies sometimes. That is,
okay, I got you.
Because of the way the alien invasion is presented, it feels like the first 20 minutes are an alien invasion, and then we kind of split between a fun road movie with kids and then this real sort of dark, serious thing. And sometimes it's not quite consistent. Like in some scenes he'll be... And this, again... I need to think about this a little more, and maybe it's because I only watched it recently, but it could be because of his issues. But you get these weird situations where you're like, in one scene they're laughing and having fun together, and then the next scene he's like almost violent. He's aggressive. He's terrifying. And he terrifies the kids.
That's how people with PTSD.
It is. However, the kids don't really reflect his actions, if you see what I mean. So in the next scene, they're fine again, and it's like, are they though? Are they not a bit worried the way he just acted in the last scene? And there's a couple of times like that. It's not his performance. It's just like, I'm not sure they wrote the kids to kind of reflect his behavior the whole way through. Although eventually we do get there. We do get to that point. And there are some really, really heartwarming moments between his kids and him. Overall, I think this is it is a really fun movie. It's got a few issues, and as I said, it does send you down a path that it had no intention of going down. But if you're open to that, really good fun movie, well acted, really well directed in places. I was really surprised and impressed with. I don't know why I was surprised. I don't actually know what this director's done, but he great direction in a lot of the scenes. I would recommend, worth a watch.
Okay, well, I think I will then. I was a little, like I said, I was a little put off by the because I was thinking, do I want to sit and watch a movie that's obviously going to be a bait and switch? But if
I think What Remains is still a good movie.
Okay, then I probably will watch it then. The director had previously done Beast, which is one that I still haven't seen, but that's got Jesse Buckley and Johnny Flynn in it, and it's one of those. Is he a serial killer, or is he just a normal bloke that's got a reputation? That again was one that I really wanted to say, and I've not got round to it. But so I heard good things about that. So I think he's obviously
up and coming.
Look for.
I think I would. If I was going to pick between the 2 movies I've discussed today, I would pick Antlers, 100%. Yes. But given that Antlers is only available to buy, and you can watch Encounter if you've got a Prime, Encounter is well worth a watch. So, yeah. Anyway, what would you like to talk about next?
I will go for Last Night in Soho.
I'm very, very interested in this one because I saw the trailer and I thought it looked great. And obviously Edgar Wright. So
it is. So it's Edgar Wright not doing comedy sort of horror.
No, and that's the great thing.
It's an actual, it's an actual horror movie.
Yeah.
So it's Thomasine McKenzie, Anya Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith. Wonderful final performance from Diana Rigg. Rita Tushingham, and Terence Stamp.
Oh, cool.
This is we're introduced to Eloise, who is a young girl who, when we first see her in this brilliant opening sort of song, this movie is completely steeped in 60s music. The soundtrack is fucking amazing.
If there's one thing you can count on from an Edgar Wright movie, it's that the soundtrack will be great, and also the film will be directed around that soundtrack incredibly well. Songs are perfectly chosen by Edgar Wright, and I hope this movie hasn't,
Oh no, it does not.
Still impresses. Yeah.
So Thomasin is parading around her bedroom in a dress made of newspapers that she's made. And she is waiting on a acceptance to, I think it's art college in London. She lives with her grandmother in Cornwall, and her grandmother says, she gets this place in this college, and her grandmother basically says it's clear from the start that she is a very sensitive girl, and that and not just in she's emotionally sensitive. She's sensitive in that she sees dead people. Basically, she sees her mother in the mirror, and her mother, her grandmother says to her, if everything gets too overwhelming in when you're in London, don't hesitate to come home. Just come in. I don't want the same thing to happen to you as it happened to your mother, because your mother was the same. Which she was sensitive to, and it got too much for her, and I don't want that to happen to you.
Mm.
So she says that's fine, and she goes to London. She gets on the train, and she goes there, and she's got her grandma's collection of 60s LPs, and of course her grandmother's played by Rita Tushingham, who was another 60s icon. I mean, she was in Taste of Honey, she was in Dr. Zhivago, she was in a lot of really great. She's a really amazing actress in some really great 60s movies. So she goes to her dorm, where she meets this bevy of dickhead girls. Her roommate Jocasta, who is a complete dickhead to her, sort of belittles where she comes from, and gets terribly jealous when she introduces her to these other girls, and she says about she's only going by Jocasta now and all that sort of rubbish, and she says this terrible thing happened to her, and about her and her mother, and of course she says her mother committed suicide, which to her was like a one-up thing. Yeah. So she immediately says, I had an uncle that committed suicide. It's very I was like, all that sort of stuff. Anyway, she's terribly put on by these, bullied by Jocasta and her friends, and she decides that she doesn't want to bloody live in this awful place anymore. So she sees this note on it was on a board, but it's on the floor when she finds it. She finds this note that says, "House rooms only for women, no men allowed," sort of thing. So she phones this number, and it's answered by a Dinah Rigg, Mrs. Collins, and she says, no men, no, all these rules. She says, that's fine. I'm happy. I really want to, to get away from where I am. So I'm more than happy. So she goes to see Dinah Rigg's character, and she says, it's old fashioned, but I'm not changing it. All that sort of stuff. And she gets this room, which is quite a nice room actually, but she's got to pay quite a lot for it because Mrs. Collins says she's had girls run out on her before, so she wants like 2 weeks up front and 2 weeks, all that. She wants quite a bit to sort of get there, and she says that's fine. So she moves in. When she falls asleep that night, she is transported to the 60s. She discovers that she's basically inhabiting, almost inhabiting the body of Anya Taylor-Joy's character Sandy, who is this bright, vivacious girl who wants to be a singer, and she goes to the Paris Club in London, where she's determined to be a singer in this place, and she goes to the barman and says, "Look, I want to speak to the manager. I'm going to be the biggest thing." And when she walks in, the Cilla Black's, singing on stage when she walks in, and the barman says to her, "Boss isn't in, but why don't you go and talk to Jack at the end of the bar, who's played by Matt Smith, the one talking to Cilla Black." Yeah. So she goes down to sort of talk to him, and he says, "Who are you then?" And she says, I'm Sandy," and he says, I'm going to be the next Cilla Black," and he says, "All right, then I can help you with that sort of thing." So he basically they run they going across the dance floor when some guy who's hit on her before tries to hit on her again. He calls her a whore. Jack hits him. They do a runner. They end up sort of snogging in the sort of alley sort of thing. And the next day, Thomasin goes in. Eloise goes into college, and she's buoyed by this experience of seeing this having this amazing 60s experience with this amazing young girl, and seeing all these fantastic things, and she discovers that she's actually got a hickey on her neck. That
right.
How could that possibly have happened?
Yeah.
From there, obviously, things spiral out, and you see that Jack isn't as nice as he first appeared, and he gets Sandy into some dodgy situations, and from there, Eloise is convinced that something terrible happened to Sandy and that Jack probably killed her. And meanwhile, she's been seeing this old guy walking around, played by Terence Stamp, who talks to her and sort of like he knows her sort of thing, and he's this sort of slightly dodgy old guy, and she sort of thinks, well, she becomes convinced that this is Jack. And I am obviously, again, I'm not going to spoil anything.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil too
much. But obviously, if you've seen the trailer, you know that bad stuff happens.
Mm-hmm.
This is great. Edgar Wright is, it's not his best movie, I don't think, but it's really good. It's a really well made non-comedic.
Which is nice, because it's nice to see him do something non-comedic. And it's funny, we were talking before we went live, or not live recorded. That he's never put a step wrong before, and it's great to see something that's I mean, I'm assuming there's a bit of the occasional joke maybe, but it's devoid of comedy for the most part. It's a serious. It's a change of pace. It's great.
Yeah.
Because even Baby Driver obviously had a lot of comedy to it and moments to it. Mm-hmm. This is a very different movie for Edgar Wright, and I'm really thrilled that he's pulled it off. I'm really excited to see it.
Mean, it's got Dario Argento's fingerprints all over it. It's
well, you can't go wrong with that. Well, actually, you can go. Exactly. You can go wrong with that if it's later, but early Argento.
Yeah, I think Ed Wright has said before that he was influenced by Argento, and you can really see it in the neons and the
awesome.
Some of the amazing scenes of sort of through fractured mirrors and things, and they're very Suspiria like. There's an amazing dance number between Matt Smith and Anya Taylor-Joy and Thomasin McKenzie, which is they're sort of switching out while they're going around, so it switches between the two things, and I'm pretty certain that it was all done practically. There was literally through camera angles and switching. It was all done like that, and it's brilliant. It's really, really good. There's even as on a personal love, there's a scene where they're at a Halloween party and they play some Susie and the Banshees, which
nice
was great for me.
Yeah.
Anya Taylor-Joy, fantastic. Thomasin McKenzie, really great. I mean, as like with you were saying about with the Encounter one, it's like there's a lot of her fracture. Her mind is fracturing, and is it all in her head, or I think not quite so much in this. I think it's more real that it is actually she is really seeing these things than would be suggested in the other movie. But Matt Smith, wonderfully menacing as Jack. Diana Rigg is Diana Rigg. In her final performance is great as this landlady. Um, Wonderfully wonderful shots. There's some beautiful sort of switches and visions that she sees are really really well done. And there's I kind of guessed where it was going, but only slightly, and I was not disappointed. It's really really good. I really enjoyed it. I think there is some truly horrifying bits in it. There's some great sort of spooky moments, and as I said, the completely believable in the with this Eloise character. She's really really great, and there's a whole sort of idea of the idealized 60s that we all have in our heads, and the reality of what happens to the Sandy character, and it's that thing, isn't it? We all, I mean, I suffer terribly with nostalgia, but you could, I'd like to think that I'm not completely blind to the terrible things that were also going on for me it's the 80s. I'm not, I know exactly. I mean, I did live through the 80s. I was quite young, but I'm aware enough of the shit that happened in those decades, and this shows that sort of the joy at the beginning, turning to sort of like the misery that she sort of can't escape. It's really good. I really enjoyed it. It's, as I said, it's not the best of the Edgar Wright movies, but it's a thoroughly enjoyable, very Dario Argento's tinged movie. It's really great.
That sounds great.
I really liked it, and I was really satisfied with the ending. Really good movie.
Yeah, it sounds exactly like I wanted it to be honest. From the trailer and the hype and expectations that goes along with an Edgar Wright movie these days. I'm glad that he's continuing to just release amazingly good movies.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will definitely be checking that one out soon. So you're not going to leave us on that because you're going to do one more Christmas film. Right?
I am indeed. I am doing. I've watched Father Christmas is Back.
Yes.
So this is on movie on Netflix. It stars Elizabeth Hurley, John Cleese, Kelsey Grammer, Natalie Cox, Chris Marshall, Caroline Quentin, Tallulah Riley, Naomi Frederick, April Balby. It's pretty massive, great cast. So this is we're introduced to Natalie Cox's character, Caroline Christmas Hope, who is she's this uptight mother who lives in this big mansion in England, and she's married to Chris Marshall's character, Peter Hope, and they have 2 children, and she has been planning this perfect Christmas for pretty much the entire year, and she has 4 sisters that are coming to stay. So we've got the Elizabeth Hurley, who is the old. I think she's the oldest sister. She's this sort of fashion editor sort of thing. We've got Tallulah Riley, who is a sort of she's the youngest sister. She's the sort of the rebellious one who turns up on a motorbike, and then we've got Paulina, who is a she's been working on her thesis for years and years, and she's been writing it all about the Beatles. She's completely obsessed with the Beatles. And then you've got Caroline Quentin, who is their mother, and John Cleese, who is their uncle. And they all come together, and they're obviously a massively dysfunctional family. And it turns out that meant like 30 years ago, their dad basically just up and left on Christmas Day when they were kids. And the youngest sister has been traveling America, and while she was in America, she met her dad, played by Kelsey Grammer, and she invites him to Christmas with them.
Mm-hmm.
So he turns up with his incredibly much younger girlfriend, and chaos ensues. Obviously, this is high farce camp.
Of course,
It's massively over the top. Sometimes, I mean, truly excruciating things happen in this movie.
but that's the intent, right? I mean, that's
Yes, it's completely on purpose. It's quite funny that Caroline Quentin is playing Elizabeth Hurley's mother when she's like only 5 years older than her, but never mind. Obviously, and again, Christmas tropes. There's obviously a secret to why he disappeared, and there was obviously reasons and all that sort of stuff. John Cleese is great as the sort of slightly pompous.
It's always nice to see John Cleese, to be honest.
Who's carrying on with Caroline Quentin's character.
Uh-huh.
Like you've got Kelsey Grammer being the ever charming Kelsey Grammer, basically.
Yeah.
Elizabeth Hurley doing the slightly aging sex pot. You've got Chris Marshall doing this sort of the posh idiot. And to be honest, everybody's an idiot in this movie. It's really bad, but really enjoyable. It's just every time it sort of gets too cringy, it does kind of save itself, I think, with being quite funny as well.
Yeah.
There are the usual sort of massive disasters. The electrics go. They put the food outside to keep cold, and foxes get in, and just silly stuff like that. But like you said, it's a Christmas movie. You expect a certain amount of silliness.
Yeah, it goes with the territory, doesn't it? I think, and we're all far more forgiving of Christmas movies.
Yeah,
I think generally.
It is genuinely funny in parts. It's some. I mean, I was. There are cringy moments where it is like, oh god, I'm so tempted to turn this off. But
yeah,
it does sort of bring it back. It's directed by Mick Davis, who, funnily enough, he directed the Christmas movie I did a couple of years ago. I'm pretty sure maybe it wasn't him. Maybe it was no, he did. He directed My Dad's Christmas Date, which I reviewed last year, which was the Jeremy Piven one,
mm-hmm.
which was one of those which was almost a bait and switch. Was that that was billed as a happy Christmas movie, and it really wasn't. It was more of a movie about grief and things. That one was way better. That was a genuinely good, if somewhat miserable Christmas movie.
Okay, yeah.
But that one I really enjoyed. This one, I can recommend it if you're willing to deal with
in a silly mood and ready for
Like I said, it is massively over the top, but it is funny. I did enjoy it. It was. It genuinely verged on times where I was like, I should just turn this off because this is too much. But like I said, it was heartwarming enough that it kept me going. So the two Christmas movies I've seen this week, I think Love Hard is much better. I think that was a very good a pretty good Christmas movie.
Yeah.
This one is a sort of average Christmas movie that is well done. I would say it's for what it is. It feels like a very traditional farce, which is what I did quite like about it. It felt like it could have been made in, I don't know, any time
right
in the past. It felt like a very traditional farce. So it was there was no messing around with current politics or any of that sort of guff.
Yeah,
it was just a silly movie,
just a bit of fun.
I would say if you want to see a good Christmas movie, I would say
I think
Love Hard first, but I think you could do worse than this. It's,
no, and I do
far from
genuinely,
the worst Christmas movie I've seen.
I do genuinely think that Christmas is that one time a year where that kind of farcical, nonsensical, over the top, silly, cheesy stuff is just perfectly acceptable. You know?
Yeah.
And sometimes that's all you want from a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's great. I'm glad. So I think that's all the films. Is there anything else you want to talk about while we're here?
No, I do not think so. I think that's pretty much it, really, for this week. Not much sort of thing.
We've done two recordings this week, and
Good.
we are planning another one for. I think we're recording on Christmas Eve next, right?
We are, yes.
And what are we going to record?
We are going to be doing Scrooged.
Scrooged. Love that movie. I actually watched it last year, so now I have a reason to watch it this year. So
kind of watch it every year. So
it's most years, not every year for us actually. It's in rotation, but not every year. Like Muppets Christmas Carol is every year. Christmas Eve without fail.
I think that that and Gremlins for me.
Gremlins is a solid one too.
I will watch every year.
Yeah, I'm Home Alone as well, quite often. Weirdly, Home Alone 2 is the one we watch the most.
Okay.
It's not as good of a movie, but it's way more Christmassy. Like, it's the most Christmassy movie ever. Like,
true.
It's in New York with the snow and the turtle doves. And, like, it's just so Christmassy. I can't... and I think I watched it loads as a kid around Christmas, so I kind of associate it with Christmas.
Makes sense.
But, yeah, and then Lord of the Rings, obviously, because... They come out. They were released at Christmas. They were released in December.
It's what you associate with.
Yes, exactly. I associate with Christmas.
Most random things you associate with Christmas. I mean, for me, growing up, bloody The Great Escape was on every fucking Christmas.
Yeah,
so,
and like
not remotely a Christmas movie, but it was always on at Christmas.
Yeah, and Indiana Jones, I always associate with Boxing Day.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's a Boxing Day movie, and funny enough, I had another podcast. Posted and they were like, hey, let us know what Star Trek you watch at Christmas. And that got me thinking, and I was like, actually, I always associated like Voyage Home and Undiscovered Country as Christmas movies, quote unquote, because I used to have them on VHS and used to watch them a lot at Christmas. And again, it's that like, hey, like Voyage Home feels like a Boxing Day movie to me because I would have watched it a lot on Boxing Day. And never mind the one Star Trek movie that actually has Christmas in it, but I didn't watch Generations very often, so
no. But James Bond is another one though.
Yes.
Christmas holiday, so
it's a holiday movie, isn't it? Yeah, for sure.
Like you said, the Boxing Day thing was definitely one of those.
Yeah, Indiana Jones every Boxing Day.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's always been the way. It's
fair enough.
But yeah, cool. Well, Scrooged next week. Actually, sorry, no. When we release this, Scrooged later this week. But until then, stay safe, and we'll catch you next time.